Hey guys, today we're in the book of Genesis, chapter 3. So now God has seen Egypt, that he has seen Israel in Egypt, and Moses is 80 years old in Midian. And so we pick up with chapter 3. And Moses was keeping his flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Now, a couple things. The west side is the far wilderness. It's the place that you wouldn't go to. So we don't know why he went there. I believe that God called him there, called the sheep there, and he followed the sheep. But it says he come to Mount Horeb or Horeb, which will be called later Mount Sinai. So Mount Horeb and Mount Sinai are the same place, the same mountain, right? So he is on Sinai. And notice what it says, verse 2, the angel of the Lord, not an angel, the angel. So this is what we would say is God, right? God, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. We're going to see that fire becomes synonymous with the presence of God. And so he has this flame of fire in the midst of this bush. He looked up, the bush was burning. It did not did not burn up. So he goes up on Mount Sinai to see this bush, and all of a sudden this voice crawls out to him, Moses, Moses. Now, if you remember Genesis, this is the same thing that happened to Abraham. Abraham. This is the same thing when God met with Jacob. Jacob, and both of their answers was, here am I, right? And so we see the same thing. Here I am. And then he said, do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place that you are standing is holy ground. The first thing that God tells Moses is, I am holy, you are not. This is holy. You cannot come near, right? So the first thing that he says, he calls him and tells him he is holy. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. He tells him, first, I am God and I am holy. Number two, I am the God of the past. I am the God of your forefathers. Remember your past. Remember the promises that I have made. I am here with you. And then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction, right? So back to Exodus 2, right? They were crying out to God, have you forgotten me? No, God has not forgotten them. He's waiting for his timing. I've seen the affliction of, notice that word, my people. God refers to Hebrews, right, as his people who are in Egypt. And he says, I have come down. I have come to intervene. I have come to do something about what's going on in Egypt, to bring them up out of the land, to bring them into the promised land, to keep my promise that I made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To bring them into the land that is flowing with milk and honey. That's the promised lands. And then we see in verse 10, come, I will send you to Pharaoh. Uh-oh. You have to imagine at that point, Moses is kind of loving this. He's hearing God. He's seeing this fire. He's doing all of this. Then God reveals his plan to Moses, and he says, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh. And you have to imagine instantly Moses is like, no, I don't want to go. No, not back to Pharaoh. I ran away from Pharaoh. You don't know what I've done. I killed an Egyptian. Oh my goodness, right? He says, I will send you back to Pharaoh. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? When we read this in the English, we get this confused, okay? Moses is not asking God, who am I that I can go to Pharaoh? Who am I that I can release all of the Hebrews from slaves? That's not what Moses is asking. In the English, that's what it looks like. In the Hebrew, it's very, very specific. When he says, who am I? In the Hebrew, it's the word anoki. Anoki. And what he's saying, what he's asking is, who is I that is saying that they are going to go to Egypt to talk to Pharaoh? Who is I that is going to release the Pharaoh? Does not think he has the power to go to Pharaoh. Moses does not think he has the power to go release the slaves. He's saying, okay, God, who are you? You said you're going to do this. Who is I? Today we would say this. Who is that mouse in your pocket, right? You ever have somebody say, oh, we're going to do this. And you're going to say, you got a mouse in your pocket? Who's we, right? It's what Moses is truly asking. Who is I? Who are you, God, that you should do this? And then he says, but I will be with you, and I will be your sign, and I have sent you. Then you have brought your people out of Egypt, and you shall serve God on this mountain. God says, you're going to go to Pharaoh, you're going to release the slaves, and you're going to come back right here. Moses knew from the beginning that the plan was to come back to Mount Horeb, to Sinai. And Moses said to God, if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? He's already thinking about all the excuses. If I went to all these Hebrews and I said, God told me this, they're going to say, who's God? Remember, these Hebrews have been enslaved in Egypt for 430 years. They have not been worshiping God alone for 430 years. Most of these Hebrews now have idols in their houses. They have multiple gods. They know about the gods of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but they worship many other gods, right? And so Moses knows this because he was there, and he's saying, well, who should I say? They're going to ask, who is this? And he said, this is to the people. And then God said to Moses, I am who I am. I am who I am. Haya Asher Haya. That's what it is in Hebrew. I am who I am. This is not the name of God. Haya Asher Haya is not the name of God. I am who I am. This is a precursor. This is almost a title of what he's about to say. It's not the name of God. It's a preparatory convert. He's saying, I will be who I will be. Okay? And so he says, I am who I am. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, right? So God says, I am who I am, but this is what you should say to them. I am. I am has sent me to you. I am. The word haya, right? Haya, I am. Haya Asher Haya, I am that I am. But he says, tell them Haya sent you. Or now, what does this truly mean? Haya and Yahweh are from the same word in Hebrew. Okay? So Yahweh, Hawa, that's why we say Yahweh today, but Haya, this just means I am. It means that God's identity is not constrained to anything. It's God saying that he will be who he wants to be. He will be who he decides to be. If he needs to be this, he will be that. If he needs to be that, he will be this. He can be whatever he wants to be. And so he says, what should I tell them that my name is? My name is Haya. My name is I am everything. I am that I am. I am everything. Nothing constrains me. I am the God above all other gods. God also told Moses to say to his people, the Lord, as we translate it, Yahweh or Adonai, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has sent me to you, and this is my name forever, and thus I am to remember throughout all generations. Verse 17, and I promise, because he's going to make a promise with Israel in a couple chapters. I promise that I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt, and I will take you into Canaan, the promised land that's flowing with milk and honey. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless compelled by my mighty hand. God knows Pharaoh. Pharaoh doesn't know God, but God knows Pharaoh. And he says he's not going to release you unless I've got to do this, right? God has to work through Pharaoh. Only through God working will Pharaoh let them go. He says, so I will stretch out my hand, I will strike down Egypt, and I will let them go. And then the very last words of chapter 3, so you shall plunder the Egyptians. That word plunder, that's a word of war. It's a word of victory. That word means that you will be victorious in a war against Egypt, and you will get to plunder, you will get to seize all of the assets of Egypt and take them with you. Man, what a great chapter. But you would ask yourself, where is Jesus in this, right? Moses and God, we learned the name of God, and that's great. But what's interesting is in John chapter 8, look at verse 58. Jesus is talking about, the Pharisees are talking about Jesus and about Abraham, and he says, before Abraham, I am. Before Abraham, Ha-Yah. He's saying, before Abraham, I am God. Jesus was a direct quotation of saying that he is the same God that was in the burning bush that rescued the Hebrews from Egypt. So there is no doubt in any of the religious minds that Jesus says that he is the God of all. I am the God who will not be constrained by any man or any force. I am above all things. Hope that makes sense, and we will see you tomorrow in chapter 4. God bless.